The Fed raised the Fed's fund rate one more time yesterday. Will it be the last? And what other factors should we be looking at moving forward? We're here to talk about that on Today in Mortgage. Hey, what's up, Dream Makers? Welcome back to the show where we break down what's real, what's hype, and what you should be paying attention to and talking to your borrowers and buyers about out there in the real estate and mortgage news of today. I'm here back again with Rich Jefferson. Rich, good to have you back.
Hey, man, good to be back.
I know we gave you a little hiatus because you were bringing too much heat, too much goodness, so we had to slow things down a little bit. So I'm glad you're back, and it's a good time to come back too because yesterday Fed came out. We had another quarter point hike, and they kind of signaled that it might be the last for a while. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, what did Chairman Powell say? We're closer to the end
Then we
than
are to
we
the
are to the
beginning.
beginning. Yeah,
Yeah.
so those are all good signs. You didn't hear that before.
Yeah.
And I think that gave the market a little bit of a boost yesterday. And then towards the end of the day, the longer Chairman Powell talks, like the
Yeah.
worse the market gets. So
Yeah.
it started to tail off at the end.
Yeah, most definitely. So it sounds like, and he's signaling, obviously, they're going to continue to monitor. That's what they always say. But it looks like those things might be tapering off. And I think a lot of that has to do with what we've seen in the banking sector and just the effects that will happen when you raise the rates that fast, some unintended consequences. Rich, do you think that's true, that some of this has to do with banking collapse? And we obviously had another collapse over the weekend and everything that's going on there?
There's just a convergence with a lot of things, a
Sure.
lot of are they unintended? I don't know. I mean, there's a
Sure.
lot of big brains that do this stuff, and a lot of these signs were out there that were going to be some bank failures. People, banks that were teetering, maybe lending out more than the deposits. There's all this crazy regulation for that stuff, but they try to ride the edge, especially regional banks, because they're the biggest for business loans, construction loans, jumbo loans. They're out there. They're the primary lender for the business community. And, they were spread pretty thin. And when you bump interest rates as fast as we have, there's reaction all the way through by a lot of different sectors.
Yeah, and we definitely saw that happen. And so we talked about, the rates and what they're doing. We talked about how some of the bank collapses may affect what the Fed wants to do and how fast they want to continue to raise rates. But Rich, we pulled something today that we haven't really talked about much on this show, and that is consumer confidence and how that can actually affect what the Fed does and what the economy does moving forward is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. So we pulled an article from USA Today that talks a little bit about this. The title is "How Will the Housing Market Be Affected with the Federal Reserve Interest Rate Hike?" But what's interesting about this is there's some stuff in here about consumer confidence, like I just said. And I'll go ahead and lead off with this quote. It says, "Consumer confidence, which dipped to a 9-month low last month, could be the most important metric to watch. How people are feeling about economic uncertainties could be the key driver of what the housing market looks like in the second half of the year." Rich, speak into what that looks like with the general economy and how that gauges or does not gauge the Fed's success.
Well, if your consumer, which the entire economy rides on, is not confident, they're not spending. And if they're not spending, businesses aren't selling. And so it's just a cycle, and we're going through it. And while not everybody's out trying to buy homes, they have to buy cars. They're getting credit cards, and all of those interest rates are up, which means, the 0% interest on a car just 12 months ago is now 5%. So that payment, therefore, is that much more money. And they got to have a car. So instead of that lower payment and extra spending money to go buy the TVs and whatever to support the economy, they're not doing that because they have to pay for the car, or their minimum payments on their credit cards were just increased because of the Fed rate hikes. And, it just bleeds out. And we want confident consumers because they'll spend, they'll buy.
Yeah, so obviously that is kind of one of the goals of what the Fed's been doing to raise interest rates, slow down the economy, decrease spending, and that has effects on jobs and obviously has effects on our industry. But Rich, is there any sort of direct correlation in consumer confidence to what rates might look like? Maybe not the Fed funds rate, but what mortgage rates might look like.
Yeah. Well, if you're trying to attract consumers,
Sure.
prices have to come down.
Mm.
That's the way you're going to take. You need to entice that buyer, that consumer, that they're not buying at this price, but they will buy at this price. And that has to do with everything. So we're starting to see that in the housing market. Your sellers are starting to come off their price. The price appreciation, the price acceleration has kind of slowed down. So sellers are willing to do different things for buyers to help encourage them to come buy my property. So
Sure.
that's good stuff. But this just takes time. I mean, we're likely to see lower rates towards the end of this year. Who knows? But the data shows that's likely to happen. And then, the buyers will come out. That'll happen.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're already starting to see it. Things have turned around a little bit. And this
Sure.
was a third indicator beyond rates and, the banking stuff that we just haven't talked about. And so I wanted to explore that today. So, Rich, thanks so much for coming on today and shedding a little bit of light on that and